Oh, I'm loving this. I'm absolutely loving this. They've taken Colombo. That's a port. They're in. Oh, is it 5 times now? Okay, I'm glad they reduced that because it basically meant micro silly. Berlin still held. They have a lot of troops here. I wonder if they're reinforcing it. Am I allowed to see construction? I think I'm allowed to see construction. So, France, are you building forts? No. I think I probably would be if I were you. Just build a level 10 fort in Berlin and just be like... India strikes back. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, they're not pushing any further. Japan got wise. Although, if they take this port, supplies cut off. Because there's no straight crossing here. And they're doing it. They've taken it. Port's fallen. Is Ceylon a victory point? Not sure. Can you, one of you check that? I don't think it is. I think this is just India doing it for the sake of being India. Meanwhile, no, there was already a little peninsula there. Although they have crossed the river, so they do have a potential way across, and some of these Russian units are looking low. Right, one of the questions I was asked was manpower laws. So we can see that, whoa, Russia's already on service by requirement. China is extensive conscription. France is service by requirement. Union of Britain, extensive. CNTFAI, extensive. Socialist Italy, service by requirement. United States, limited. Oh wow, USA is on. Well, actually, the USA has no manpower. They're not really limited. They're on extensive. Canada, extensive. Who else? France, service. Siam, limited. Siam's on limited. Interesting. Indochina, extensive. Australasia, service by requirement. With your 5 divisions. How big's your navy? Ah, it's quite actually massive. It's just really badly organised. How's your air force? Are you the air controller? I'm seeing a lot of ships being sunk. What's that all about? That's French reinforcements coming in to Ceylon and being intercepted by the submarines that we saw set up earlier by Japan, I'll bet. Yep. These are Japanese submarines struggling to contain the naval invasion against Ceylon. And they have taken the port, so that's no more supply coming in. Unfortunately, I am guessing that the Allies, or the Entente, are not convoy escorting. Because why would they? I mean, whoever convoy escorts. Not like this would be a classic example of a convoy escort being a bloody good idea or anything. And as a result, all of their units are dying before they even get there. So kudos to them for reinforcing. I applaud that. But you just lost 80% of that army because you weren't convoy escorting. Ceylon is indeed a victory point for CoPro, which they will lose if India take it back. Interesting. So I'm guessing that France's intention is just to sit in Ceylon now with these units if they get through. Like, Japan's blockade has done a pretty good job. Look how weak those units are. That's all manpower and equipment lost. You don't regain what you've lost to sinkage. There's also going to be experience lost. And also supply. Oh, good grief. The number of convoys that have to come here to supply this place, especially if they're putting a considerable army. These Japanese submarines are going to do a massive amount of damage. So right now, France has 291 convoys. We need to remember that. 291, because France is going to lose a lot. And India. How many convoys does India have? Probably even less. 136. Somebody really, 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 really needs to put some of these destroyers to use. Oh no, those light cruisers. Wow, you have a lot of light cruisers. Crikey. Here we go, destroyers. Unfortunately, none of you are using sonar. They're not even built. Even if you had fuel, of course. Anyway, back in Europe. Berlin remains in Third International hands. It doesn't look like as many Russian forces... Well, I mean, Russia is having to spread itself really thin to defend all of the front lines. I'm a little bit surprised they're not using a field marshal line, though I guess they just want to have that extra element of control, which is fine. It's perfectly reasonable, legitimate. I just find it easier to maintain big lines like this with field marshal lines. The shift-click field marshal, not the default one. That one's junk. Meanwhile, we've got the Italians moving here around Sofia, and then the Chinese basically take over, defending the Bulgarian front. Where are the tanks? The tanks are attacking, but no orders. In fact, they've deleted the order. They are hitting in the north, though, and they are pushing quite successfully around the north. Maybe trying to take, like, Hamburg? Okay, there goes Norway. So now that Norway has fallen, I would say that the Union of Britain's in very serious danger of another naval invasion. So after this, if I remember, we're going to check the Union of Britain's defences. Okay, so Siam took it. Okay, Siam has decent medium armor, which they could definitely use to exploit. Is Siam building submarines? Because that would be a really good use of their naval capabilities. They are. Plus, this is just going to be naval yards, which can be used for Japan and Japanese attacks. But they do still need to be careful of the North Sea and the English Channel being shallow. Meanwhile, the attacks here seem to be resisting so far. We do have the Siamese mediums with mechanized. Oh, they've upgraded to mechanized now. Interesting. Those Siamese units are beastly. Let's just take another look at that, because I'm guessing that these are still the motorized, and then they're basically phasing in the mechanized in favor of the motorized as they get enough equipment to do so. These guys have 55 armor, 60 piercing, 429 defense, 833 breakthrough, and then 500 soft attack. Those are some juicy units. The Union of Hanover. Oh, they actually released Germany. Interesting. Ooh, are these some... Oh no, those are the regular French tanks. Right, we wanted to see the Union of Britain. That's a problem. Just saying. Although we did see a massive CNTF AI army over there. What are they doing? Okay, so it looks like the Union of Britain have moved their troops out elsewhere, and then CNTF AI is going to be responsible for defending Britain. Alright, fair enough. Somewhat vindicated. And yeah, the massed armor up here. I mean, these are some huge tank battles going on right now, and this is going to be a war of industry. Unfortunately, in this matchup, heavy tanks versus mediums, I favour the heavies all the way, simply because their armour is so much heavier. Because, actually, mediums against infantry, mediums all the way. I want to see a matchup between these two fighting again. Right, the other thing I wanted to take a look at was resistance. These infantry units are just melting before these heavies. The Russian tanks are heavies. The French ones are medium. Oh, but we have some Entente forces arriving on the front. We've got some United States of America heavies. The Heebies. The heebie-jeebies. Alright, this is what I wanted to see. So, the Siamese cannot be pierced by any of the enemies. And the combined armor here is just melting. I mean, they're not going for Berlin. Berlin's urban, which means that tanks are a lot weaker. Tanks are really bad in urban. That's where infantry rock. And all of this is just open territory. Fighting the forest is difficult. Fighting the plains are easy. Fighting across the rivers, very difficult for tanks. Unless, of course, they have engineers, which these do not. So the rivers are going to be a real pain for the Russians. The Spanish protecting the British coastline, Sir Francis Drake is spinning in his grave. Yeah, it really is. These really are battles like Kursk, 1943, thousands of tanks on each side. Yeah, absolutely. They're attacking the south of Berlin, so this is smart. So what they're trying to do is get control of as many provinces around Berlin, because the more provinces you attack from, the more attack bonuses you get. There is basically surround penalties, and the more you're surrounded, the worse you fight. And if they manage to surround Berlin completely, then it's gone. And they're definitely trying. They're getting a pincer here, they're going for here, and France really needs to bolster the defences here. I also want to just take a very quick look to see if France is investing in AT or not. So the irregular infantry are not. Oh, yep, you got support AT, but that's not going to be enough. What they really need, considering how heavy the tanks are line anti-tank. And then they've also got these guys, which do have line AT. Their Pierce is 53. It's still not high enough. Huzzah! Jackson coming in with a 22-month resubscription. Thank you very much for the ongoing support there, Jackson, with the Twitch Prime. Really do appreciate that. 2 more months, and then you get those lovely orange wings. And that's just going to make everything more amazing. So the Americans are fighting alongside the communists against Russia. Talk about a weird history. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing we did want to take a look at was occupations. So, I was right. The Russians are dealing with a lot of resistance here. I mean, they're keeping it relatively tight, but they are going to be getting problems. Basically, wherever you see these shields, that's where resistance problems really occur, because they get a 50% extra damage, effectively, against garrisons. Which means that there's going to be a huge manpower drain because of the resistance. In fact, right now, they're using local police forces, which is probably too low. They probably want secret police. If we just split out German Empire, here we go. The resistance target is actually only 12. That's pretty decent. Why is it higher for, like, Bohemia? And they're doing this with harsh quotas. I don't understand why harsh quotas are so good at quelling resistance. I feel like it shouldn't be. Actually, you get the plus 50% damage to garrisons, but you lose the organised resistance penalty. And where was it? Bohemia. Huzzah! Galicia. No, it is literally Bohemia. Where the hell is Bohemia? Can I pass it? Is it at the top? Bulgaria, Bohemia. There it is. So this is where resistance is really bad. Resistance target is 28. They take penalties at 25 and then heavier penalties at 50. Do not let your resistance go above 50. 25 you can kind of deal with, but where it's reaching like 30 in a few places, they are going to be costing a lot of manpower. They're still using local police forces, which I think is too low. Again, secret police, military governor. Keep that below 20. Keep that below 25 rather. So like the 23s, yeah, those are fine. 24, fine. 25, danger. And it's still rising higher. And you can see from the resistance target where it's trending towards. That's where this line is. I do wish that there was an average line on this page, though, rather than having to split out every time. That's a bit annoying. As a newbie question for Kaiserreich, what strategy would you suggest for a German navy? Fleet and being. The German fleet is already super strong, so you're basically, as German naval, imagine yourself as the UK in vanilla. Your strategy should be much the same. You've got a very similar fleet to the UK in vanilla, and your surface power projection would be basically the same as well. Big emphasis on big capital ships, destroyers to deal with enemy submarines, your own submarines to intervene against their convoys and basically protect trade blockades and stuff like that. But you are very much a surface fleet with capitals. They're getting garrison support from China. Yeah, which makes sense. China's basically paying the bill. Where's Berlin gone? There it is. Being attacked. Encircled. They need to hold on to this position, though the French right now are attacking back unsuccessfully. Berlin is being hit, and it's being hit hard. Oh, that's a name I recognize. Why is Joseph Stalin a general on the French side? Fighting against Russia. What? I didn't even know that was possible. Oh, wow. Since when's that been a thing? He's not actually a bad commander either. Alright. Well, of all the weird things that you've seen now, Joseph Stalin fighting for the Commune of France against Russia. How is the Entente doing? Good question. They've held on to Ceylon. They have now secured it. So India is once again in the game. They are holding every single port, unsurprisingly. This is probably India's final objective. They're just going to sit there and try and hold. They might try and retake Japan. In fact, a consolidated, coordinated offensive from Africa, for example, an American naval invasion of India would be a problem for the Third International, and that might actually be where the Entente comes in the most useful. I hadn't really considered India being the soft underbelly, but it is. It definitely is. Stalin defending Berlin, yeah, exactly. These are confusing times. I love the delay there. Like talking about other things for a minute, and then everyone's like, Stalin! So we've still got the 2 American heavy tanks. Oh no, they're not even heavy tanks. They're, what, infantry? Oh no, they are heavies. Let's go over to America, see what those are like. Are they as heavy as the Russians, is the question. Yes. They still have their 45 organization. That's crazy. Armor isn't as heavy, but they have enough piercing. 93 piercing will penetrate that Russian armor. So Russia is going to be countered fairly effectively by the Americans here, I think. But they just need to make sure that they keep these heavy tanks like in opposition to the Russians. The downside, of course, for the Americans is, 1, this is not a tank commander, it's an infantry commander. 2, there's only 2 of them. Those are the only real issues, I would say. And then a potential shortage of... Nah, supplies should be okay. I don't really see anyone getting in the way of that. We got convoys being attacked here. There we go. That's a lot of convoys. Siamese. That's somebody else doing the convoy raiding. These are Japanese... Oh no, they're Dutch East Indies. Very similar flag. Siam, Dutch Indies. Especially when it's really small. Meanwhile, the Russian tanks are down here fighting in Thrace. There are the odd attacks. I mean, one of the other places where Russia could do well is if they take Vienna. Although there is the Danube, which they would now need to cross. So the Union of Britain doing a pretty good job. Well, actually, it's France guarding that area. Is the industry difference still the same? 986 factories for the Co-Prosperity, 992 for the Co-Prosperity. So it's still roughly the same. Difference of 6. 6 factories are in it. I'm actually astonished with how close this match has become. I had expected a very dominant play from the Co-Prosperity, but Third International are bringing it, and they are bringing it hard. So, if we were playing as Co-Prosperity right now, what would our goal... Well, how could we shift this? We do control Anatolia, and I wonder if naval invasions from Anatolia could be a thing. Probably led by Japanese, and see if we can get behind, for example, Greece. No, we can't. Because Suez and Gibraltar are owned by the CNTFAI. We can't get our navy in here. The only one who potentially might be able to would be Russia. And they wouldn't have enough. Are heavy tanks really worth it? Yes. Especially if they're being used the way that Russia is using them to try and force a breakthrough. Like, exploiting the breakthroughs, mediums are much better at that. But in places where enemy is heavily entrenched, heavies are great. Heavies are also very, very strong against forts. They have an innate bonus against forts. So if your enemy is fortifying really heavily, heavies. Or if they've got like level 10 forts, super heavies. As tanks seem very important in this fight, would I remind you of the relative bonus malus of piercing versus armor? Okay, so I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this because I'm not 100% sure that I grasp it, but it's a raw numbers thing. So if your armor is higher than their piercing, then you're armored and you take 50% less damage. Your entire division takes 50% less damage if your armor doesn't get pierced. If your piercing is higher than their armor, then you pierce the armor and you do full damage. The other thing which comes into play is hardness. So there's armor which is just like a straight up damage reduction. If you don't pierce my armor, I take 50% less damage. It really matters. The other one is soft attack versus hard attack. So soft attack is just the amount of damage I do to units. However, if they have a hardness, then that is basically a damage reduction. So anyone attacking this armored unit would only do 38% of their soft damage to this unit. The other 61% would have to be done by hard attack. Whether hard attack does as much damage... No, hard attack generally doesn't do as much damage as soft attack. But any hard attack is unresistible, except by armor. So armor is just a straight up damage reduction. No. I'm trying to think of like the proper vocabulary to explain the different terminology, because soft attack versus hardness is just straight up damage reduction. If you have hardness, you will reduce their soft damage by this amount. If you have armor, it's a damage block. It's not even a block, because you still take damage, you just take 50% less. It's an armor resistance, it's damage resistance. That's what I just said, it's not. Hopefully you get it. Is China building a bunch of industry? Let's take a look. China right now, construction is building mills. Russia right now is building... Oh, bloody hell. 263 civilian factories. And they have... actually 15% consumer goods reduction. Boris Savinkov is increasing that by 5%. That's a lot of different industry. They're actually building air bases, not factories. That's interesting. Actually, that's another thing we should take a look at, is the air situation. Even the USA. So Russia right now has more civilian factories than the USA does. Which is not that surprising considering Russia's size. Air. Let's take a look at the air situation. The big one's going to be this. So there is a lot of air resistance. There is a massive air battle going on in eastern Germany. 2,000 planes on either side. Superiority at the moment is slightly leaning towards the Third International, but it's close. Oh no, they just got green air over Germany. Why am I not seeing planes being shot? Oh, it's probably because Russia's not the air controller. Who's their air controller? It's not Siam. It's not Indonesia. Oh, it's Japan, isn't it? It's Japan. So if we take a look at this from Japan's perspective, we'll actually see the number of planes being shot down on either side. There we go. So right now, they are shooting down more of the enemies this turn. Yep, still. So currently air superiority is in favour of Co-Pro, but that's because the Third International seem to have just removed 1,000 planes. 6-3. They're not losing planes. They've got a pretty overwhelming advantage in terms of plane quality. 1-2. 4-5. That was closer. Oh, no. 1,000 planes just reappeared. But then Co-Pro just threw in another 1,000. There's now 4,000 versus 2,000. Although 1,000 of those are close air support. And then if we take a look at Bohemia... Oh, no, they just lost green. There's now 3,500 planes here. Numbers are more equal. But the quality... Oh, no, they're now losing planes. Enemies gaining. This is a lot of damage being done. 16-13 against them. 10-20 in their favour. It's a close thing. The enemy's thrown in 5,000 aircraft. So clearly, Third International is determined to take control of the skies in Eastern Germany. Because they are throwing 5,000 aircraft in. 15-16. 9-13. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty close. And they've been losing more fighters overall. 2,000 to 1,700. Someone was saying that the USA has no manpower. USA does indeed have no manpower. They're still unextensive though. They have not switched. I'm guessing it's because they're Nope, they're not recruiting anything. Where's their manpower gone? They've only got 900,000 men in the field too. Oh, they're at 1.4 mobilization because they're advanced recovery from the Civil War. They're still recovering from the Civil War because the Civil War was so long. So we have not seen America in its final form yet. How's infrastructure looking? Probably bad. 104 out of 107. France is actually maintaining this really nicely. 22 out of 131. It's fine there. It's fine there. Yeah, on the international side, it's okay. On the Russian side, it's okay. Yeah, they're maintaining supply pretty well. No problems, either way. And Berlin is still being held by the Third International. And the fortifications have all been repaired. So they are now fully reinforced. Although, actually, a huge amount of infrastructure damage has been done in the Berlin area. So I'm surprised that they're as healthy as they are. But I'm seeing a lot of Russian tanks being drawn up in this area. But again, they're not using their front lines. That 50% bonus could be huge. All they need to do is push them one province. That's it. One province. Yeah, Third International is definitely Union of Britain's controller. That one I knew. I just wasn't sure about the Co-Pro. Oh, Red Centaur was asking. Sorry. Yeah, so the air controller for the Third International is Union of Britain. The air controller for Co-Prosperity is Japan. And the air controller for the Entente? Australasia, maybe?